Thank you, Rich. Or, as we know each other, as Big Mahafa, Little Mahafa. But, no, I'm not going to tell the story. Should I tell the story?
I don't care.
You don't care?
You
I'm
have
sorry.
the
Hey, the bet's on. When we traveled down to the Division I wrestling, I was rooming with Rich. Has anybody ever here roomed with Rich on a trip? Yeah. Well, as we all know that
Coach Bob, turn your hearing aid up. Where are you?
that Rich had this bit of a snoring problem, and he was loud. How loud was he? He was so loud that the switchboard lit up at the hotel lobby because the people thought there was an earthquake because the walls were vibrating. It was so loud that I actually grabbed my pillow and my blanket and went and slept in the bathtub for the rest of the night. Anyway.
That's a true story.
Anyway, there's three gentlemen here I'd like to recognize. He's already been recognized. Al Jacks. Where's Hal Wasink? Barry McAuliffe. Now, okay, these are the guys going to keep time, so I want to make sure you all synchronize the watches. Okay? Thank you. But one thing during this winter, I was reading a book about the 1970 Steelers. And for all my relatives and family, you're in Steeler country, and we live and die in the black and gold. So I was reading this book, the 70s. It was their life's work. It was a great book. And in a chapter about Franco Harris, he was talking about his mom and, back in Italy when the war was going on and losing her family. And he was talking to the guy who wrote the book about how emotional she gets. And Franco said, but what Italian doesn't? So, folks, if I do, you know why. Provost Nowacek, Athletic Director Dave Kadis, Hall of Fame Chairperson Rich Herman, and members of the Sports Hall of Fame Committee. It is an honor to be a part of such a distinguished group that I share the dais with this evening and all the previous inductees, many who I had the pleasure to know and assist during their time at Clarion. What such a humbling moment. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee and appreciate your time and dedication serving on this committee and for granting me this great honor. I'd also like to thank Bob Carlson for putting my name forward, and to those who wrote letters of support, Bob Bubb, Joe DiGregorio, Dave Durish, Ralph Naples, Ken Ellis, and Ron Ryder. And I'd also like to thank Scott Courtney. He's sitting back here somewhere. Scott, thanks for all the work you did tonight in seating everybody. But to my family and friends who traveled and some great distances to share this moment. And Marge, thanks for putting up all those nights. I was away from home, working at those athletic events. I love you, babe. But I cannot take all the credit for the academic support programming that was provided to the student athletes who came through our department programs and learning center. There were many former co-workers who assisted me. The graduate assistants, peer tutors, student support staff, and one of them sitting right here tonight, Miss DiLoretto. My assistant director, Chris Hurst, sitting out there, who developed the study skills curriculum and provided direct assistance to many of the student athletes. All students face academic and personal challenges, but add athlete after student, and those challenges become more unique because of the additional physical, mental, and time demands put on their lives. These student athletes dedicated themselves to achieve excellence in their respective sport. Most wanted to do the same in their academic studies, but some needed assistance and guidance to achieve that goal. I believed I was in that position to provide that assistance and guidance. They also needed a voice outside of athletics to help them make their academic lives more manageable. For example, being an advocate to the deans and department chairs to resolve scheduling issues. As Rich noted, I assisted with fundraising activities such as the annual golf tournament for athletic scholarships. But as we all know, the most visible contribution to Clarion Athletics was my public address announcing. And I've been asked on many occasions, how did it all start? It was all because of one individual, and her name was Carol Clay. She was the head swim coach at the time. It was 1976. And some people, Mr. Miller, thought I'd agreed to it because I'd get a date with Carol, but not the case. I did it because I knew it would be fun. But anyway, it started with swimming and diving. Then came wrestling, football, and men and women's basketball. Who knew at the time it would have spanned 31 years? It's one of the most enjoyable and rewarding experiences I had while faculty member here at Clarion. Sometimes frustrating, but one thing it did was allow me to highlight my New York accent in many ways for whatever sport I was working at the time. The three-pointers, trifectas, three-baggers, takedowns and reversals, one-and-a-half twist with a somersault, first downs, touchdowns. Many stories, experiences, and opportunities, traveling to or working state, regional, and national competitions. People I met beyond the student athletes and coaches, the long-term friendships I developed with many of the athletes. The great folks I worked with at the table, Charlie Ruslavich on the clock for wrestling, Hal Wasink and Dave Tomio running the shot clock during basketball. And of course, where would we be without Rich Herman and Chris Rossetti providing all those statistics and other appropriate information that we can inform the fans. Many good times. But after some time behind the mic and interactions with the student athletes, I realized I needed to develop a closer rapport with them, which hopefully would make it easier for them to approach me or come to the center if they needed assistance. So the strategy was to attend practice sessions for whatever sport I was announcing. I saw that the strategy worked as more student athletes began to approach me or came to the Learning Center. But one thing, attending those practices would get me to some really crazy situations, and I have to share one. We'll call this the IUP 110 bet. It was 1996 with the football team, their championship season, and I said, I attended practice, and it was Tuesdays that I attended practice for football. And at times, Coach Luke would have me speak to the team, and we had the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, one of our most hated rivalries, coming up that coming week. And one of the things that they did after Tuesday practice, Coach had them run 110-yard sprints down the field and back. So the bet was, you beat IUP, I will run those 110s with you next week. They beat them, 49-14. A couple of players came up to me and says, you know what, Dr. Lou, we didn't need any motivation to beat IUP, but when we heard that you were going to run the 110s with us, that gave us a little bit more ambition to make sure we did win. But then there was two players, too, Tim Sahida and Chris Kiker. They were offensive linemen, two of my students, and Coach had me run with the offensive line because they were the slowest. But at times, when I would lag behind, because this went on the rest of the season, as you know, they all got to the semifinals. So it was every Tuesday, I'm out there running those 110s with the players, and at times I would lag a little behind, so Sahida and Kiker would pick me up and carry me down across the field. It was a great memory, great memory. But we talked about the stories and the experiences, and being here for a long time. Like Rich said, working with ESPN and the production team was a great experience, sitting there with Leandra Riley and of the others from the ESPN crew. During our basketball games, we'd have guest singers sing the national anthem. And one was always most impressive. She was 9 years old at the time. Her name was Emily Ryder. She was the daughter of our head coach, Ron Ryder, at the time. She really sang so well, and I remember saying to whoever was sitting next to me, she's going places one of these days. She now travels Europe as a professional opera singer. But the one story that I never forget, and I always see Ron, I always say it, during the game, Ron's coaching, he's sitting right here to my right, and Emily, here she comes up, walks up there, starts yanking on the sleeve of her father, saying, Daddy, can I have a quarter for a blow pop? blow pop. And Ron, without skipping a beat, reaches in his pocket, pulls out the quarter, gives it to Emily, and continues coaching. It's just one of those moments over the years that I've experienced that you just, you can't forget. But as Rich said, in 1990, I got the opportunity to announce at the Division I Wrestling Nationals at Cole Fieldhouse at the University of Maryland. And how that happened was there's two announcers, and the secondary announcer, her name was Sandy, was sick. And Ed Aliverdi, the head announcer, who I knew through Coach Bub and Coach Jack, knew I was there, and through Coach Jack got a hold of me and asked me to fill in. It was one of the most wonderful experiences, working at a national tournament down at the University of Maryland. One of the things I recall, though, I could see across the way, I could see Charlie Slavich and Chuck Alexander. Charlie said he couldn't remember this, but I do remember that, seeing you, like, who's this guy announcing? Anyway, I ran into Chuck Alexander, who was the judge of our county court here, and he grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "Lou, when I realized it was you, I got so excited, I went and called my dad, and I said, Lou made it to nationals." But those were just a few of the many memorable experiences and stories during my career. But the real stories were about those student athletes who made many sacrifices to participate in a sport they loved while pursuing a higher education and representing Clarion. There was nothing more gratifying to me than sharing moments of victory or providing support in defeat, or being at commencement, even if it was 30 years later after their initial enrollment, and watch them walk across the stage to receive their degree. To those sitting here tonight, to all the previous inductees and hundreds of other student athletes who participated in Clarion athletics, whether it was in my office, while I was behind the mic, at practice, or on the sidelines, it was a privilege and a joy that I had the opportunity to be part of so many of your lives and help you achieve your life's goals while at Clarion. Thanks for the great stories, memories, friendships. Again, to the Hall of Fame Committee, thank you for this great honor.